When you are assigned to work in the returns contact group, you would either be in the returns contact new and open or returns contact pending and on hold. We like to work from oldest to newest, so that's something to keep in mind. You're paying attention to the dates here. These basically mean when we need to follow up on an issue. And if it is that you go into the ticket, you leave a message or you email them, you want to remove this date. So you'd want to remove this, put it in the public reply, and respond back however it is we need to follow up with the customer, and hit send in a pending status, because there's still something that we need from the customer to resolve the issue. Then you go back into the ticket and update the date. So you have to remember that we want to do it every other day or every 2 days, just to space it out and so we're not harassing the customers. And it's very important that you pay attention to not email the customer with this date, but to also go back into the ticket and update it with the necessary date for the next time we have to follow up. And when you do that the second time after submitting your ticket and sending the macro or whatever you needed to reply to the customer, when you're putting the date back for internal use, you want to make sure that you are stating what the next step should be. So if I email the customer today, maybe I will say, you know what, we've emailed them twice. On the 26th, because it's 2 days from now, make sure you call the customer because we need to know, and then you'd put an explanation here. That's just how we would work through the group. Another thing to keep in mind is where to move the tickets depending on the situation. So let's say it's in the returns contact group and we need additional information in order to process the return, and we're also waiting for the customer to reply. It would stay in the returns contact group and you would follow the steps as I just told you, making sure that you're selecting the appropriate status and you're updating the ticket accordingly, and making sure that if it's public, it needs to be public. If it's internal, then it's internal. If it's in the returns contact group and we need additional information to process the return, plus the customer provided an update, we want to make sure that we're sending it to inbound returns. They already created the ticket for CS to reach out to the customer. The customer told us the information that returns needed, so we have to send it back to inbound returns so they can process the return. It starts in the returns contact group. The call tag has still not been used. We sent a rush replacement and we're still awaiting customer replies. So we're still in the middle of doing those 3 contacts to reach out to the customer. It's going to still live in the returns contact group until we hear back from them, or until we've reached the max amount of times to reach out to the customer. If it's in the returns contact group, the call tag's not used, we've sent the rush replacement, we've done the combination of contacts and still no response, you want to escalate it to the CS tier escalation, tier 3 escalation supervisor group. What will happen is you'll put your notation of what happened and what you think the next step should be. So let's say that I reached out to person A, we've contacted them phone and email multiple times, we've reached the max amount of times to reach out to them so it doesn't become harassment. They have 2 of these particular items. They have not gotten back to us. Please refund, or what should be the next steps. And then a supervisor or manager will determine, should we eat the cost or should we actually charge the customer for this additional thing. Before doing so, you want to make sure you're reviewing it, and we should actually be escalating it. Meaning, if we have not both called and emailed the customer, it's been all 3 contacts email or all 3 contacts phone, this should not be escalated. We should try one more time with the appropriate alternative way of contacting the customer. If you review a ticket and you see this is broken glass or ceramic, or this is under $50, we do not need them to send it back. So these are things that you're paying attention to, making sure that you're escalating it accordingly when you should. Getting back to the chart now. If it's in the returns contact group, it's an RTS. The customer responded requesting for a replacement, and they confirmed the address it should go to. This would go to the order shipping problems group for the next exceptions rep to place the replacement order, or you can place it yourself if you want to own the resolution. This situation is not a decision tree situation. So you need to remember, It is only a decision tree situation if either the carrier or Uncommon Goods messed up. So if this was the case where it's an RTS because the carrier damaged it in transit, by all means, go ahead and create that decision tree for the replacement. If that's not the case, you want to make sure that you are selecting the appropriate follow-up, which is order shipping problems, or if it's something where UG or the carrier messed it up, it would be a decision tree. Please remember that. All right, so if it's a zero low inventory and it was RTS, or it was a customized item, you have to think about it. If it was returned to sender and it was a customized item that may have taken 3 weeks to process, we may get that return to sender back in a few days. So it's faster for us to reach out to returns and say, hey, when this comes in, here is the shipping label. Please ship it back out. It was returned to sender for whatever reason it may be, and you handle it from there. But you want to make sure that you're paying attention to things like this. If it's in the returns contact group, it's RTS, zero or low inventory, or is customized, and the customer has requested for a reshipment once returned to UG, that would be inbound returns. So just to go back, when it's here, we're still trying to find the additional information that we need from the customer, so it would be in returns contact. Until we get the information, then it would go to the inbound returns group. Last but not least, if it's in the returns contact group, it's RTS, and the customer responded like, I no longer want the order. Or if we've reached out multiple times and have not heard back from the customer, it should go in the payment and billing group. If none of that makes sense to you of how I explained it, please pause the video here to review and make sense of it on your end, or pause the video, play it back, and hopefully it'll make more sense the second time around. This is another helpful slide that you may want to review. Please pause here, go through the bullets, and this basically breaks down how you would proceed when a call tag validates or if the address or other information is confirmed by the customer. Pause here to review. Something else that is helpful for you to reference is going to the CS FAQ, typing in customer error, and reviewing this. Please make sure that you pause the video, go to that FAQ, and it explains to you the steps that we take in the instance where it was not the carrier's mistake, it was not Uncommon Goods' mistake, it was actually the customer that messed up the order, thus causing it to be returned to sender. So you want to make sure that you know what to do in that situation. It's mandatory that you review this aspect of it because it ties into the returns contact group so much more than you guys even know. But you'll learn, the more you go through the actual workload, you'll understand why it's important to know the difference between the two different paths you can take depending on who messed up an order. Please pause here to review that FAQ.